Hey there YouTube, AJ here, and it's Friday, and I have the day off from my real job, but I don't have the day off from my hot rod, and I've got 3 days to wrestle this 1927 Ford touring body into shape. Let's get to it. Well, if you watched to the end of my last video on this car, and if you did, thank you, you saw that I am struggling to get the body in alignment. I've got 3 out of the 4 doors shutting okay. I still don't have the back section welded to the front section yet. The driver's side front door is not closing very well. And if you sight down the passenger side of the door, it has one nice smooth curve all the way from the windshield post back to the back of the car. So here all the way around to here, this all looks good. The doors are fitting pretty good for a 27 car, but you know, so all that looks good to me. However, over here on the driver's side, hopefully this comes out on camera, if you sight down, you can see how this side comes around, kind of kinks here, the door's jammed in here, this part's kind of in, and this hole from here to here is flat, and it doesn't have, the curve isn't right. If I press in the door down here, it gets almost there, but that also twists the cowl and raises that side of it. I've tried to shim it, and I'd have to shim it way too much in order to get that to go in. So something's off here, and no matter how much measuring I do, I can't find it. I've been cross measuring and measuring gaps and everything, and I can't figure out what's causing it. And so I think what I got to do is down here, and then same place on the other side, where somebody else welded this front section to this midsection. Maybe something's out of alignment there. So I think I'm gonna have to cut it apart and fit it all again. And to do that, what I think I wanna do is I'm gonna start with the back half. I wanna get, by the end of this weekend, I want this tub to be one piece. All the subframes connected. It's not gonna be fully welded, but it'll be at least close. So previously, after I bolted down the front section, I started working on mounts back here. And basically, I needed something to connect the subframe here to the rear cross member, and there's 2 holes on each side of the cross member here that I was going to use to mount the body. So I started cobbling together a bracket, and out of the old spring perch from my truck axle and chunks of this cross member, I cobbled together this piece of engineering magnificence. And this is before I had my Cinder welder, so the welds are not great. Anyway, the idea was this bracket here would go over top of the subframe, reaching out over the rear cross member and catching that first hole to bolt through here and support the rear of the body. I am not happy with this. I don't like the way it looks, even though it's never going to be seen. I don't like the way it functions. I'm not happy with it. So I'm basically not even going to try to build the other side. So I went back to the drawing board and broke out the cardboard and crayons again, and decided I was pretty much going to take and just plate in this corner and come out over this first hole. And so I cut out a template out of cardboard. I marked where my subframe and my cross member was going to be. That way I could cut out some holes in the middle of it and make it lighter and give me perhaps more access to this shock bolt. Anyway, that was round 1. I was only catching 1 here. I didn't like the way it looked. So, got more cardboard, went at it again, And I can't put this in place here because it's going to catch on this bracket that's temporary. But I did this design, and it follows this body line out to the cross member and then comes down. That way I can catch both these bolt holes and weld this to this section of the rear subframe and this section here, and everything would sit in here. So the next step was looking for material. Now I have some 1/4 inch plate that is big enough to cover and make both of these brackets, you know, one for each side, and it just seemed like way too thick, heavy overkill for it. So I have these 2 pieces of, I thought if I weld these 2 back together there, I could get one bracket out of it here, cut out this little corner to finish this corner over here, and I get the other bracket out of here, weld that on. So that is one option. So I have 3 16th inch plate. It's still heavy, maybe too heavy. I wish I had some 1/8 inch plate, but I don't. The next best thing I have is like 16 gauge steel, and I can't get a full one out of it either. Anyway, so while I think on that and try to figure out what I'm going to do, I can go ahead and start prepping this back half, because I need to strip down the subframe for welding, clean it all up like I did for the front half here. I need to cut out some of this really crappy stuff. So that is what we're going to start with. Fortunately, I don't need to take off the doors this time. I could just open them up. I do need to remove these 2 brackets here. So let's get this going. Let's get this half re-separated from the frame and start prepping it for the work so we can weld in these braces after I decide how I'm going to make them. I don't know. Modified. Looks pretty cool to me. That could be fun. Throw away that tub. A lot less work. A lot easier. Make it a lot easier to fit a gas tank back there. Just saying. But no, you don't see a lot of the tubs hot rodded, so I like them. And like I said before, I always called these Archie cars when I was a kid, because Archie had like a 17, 18-ish Ford Model T Touring as his car, and I always liked them. They're actually one of my favorite cars to see as a hot rod. And I mean, if money were no object, yes, I'd have myself a 3-window 32 Ford coupe, because that's my absolute favorite dream car. Next in line would be a 5-window 32 Ford coupe. Third in line is actually the 2627T Touring. So, you know, I'm getting to my number 3 car, so that's not bad. It's just going to be a lot of work. So let's look at what I got here. Alright, first and foremost, you can see that this wheel well is pretty roached out. It's going to have to be replaced from here down pretty much. This part is good and can stay. This is bad. These are 2 pieces. I probably will make this into one. Weld a patch in here into here, and you know, down through here. So basically I got to remove up to here and over back. So inside here, I need to trim a little more here to make my fitting better. Trim off this and do something here, try to make this look a little nicer, because I just hacked this apart to make it fit onto my frame. I'm going to cut this back. I wish I hadn't hacked into it here. I wish I would have left some of this, but this was all pretty bad. You can see this is rusted out. Same thing on the side. This is basically where it had to sit over top of my Z'd up frame section. So that's why I cut like this. So I wish I had just bent it back which I'm going to trim this piece back and bend it back. Then you got the same kind of stuff over here. I want to clean this side up over here, make a little more clearance on this, and back here, fix that up. This wheel well isn't as bad as the other one. It's actually pretty solid down here. It's just got a holes. There's a hole there and here, so I'm gonna have to cut out like here. Maybe once I wire wheel this, maybe some other bad stuff will show up and make me cut out more, but for now we're just going to plan on cutting this out. And I can't do that yet because I need to make the patch panel for it. The back of the car is a little banged up and cut and twisted and cracked, so we got to fix that. We got a bullet hole here we got to fix. But the worst part is up here where all the panels join in. We got this corner that's all rusted out, and we have this whole bottom tail section rusted out, so we got to cut across there. Really, this isn't bothering me because I still got to fit a fuel tank in here, and I think my plan is going to be to cut it about there across and put my fuel tank in, cut this piece out, make a different brace to go across here, maybe over or under my fuel tank, I'm not sure which yet, but put my fuel tank into this spot under the seat above the differential. And then the fuel tank itself will kind of stick out a little bit, kind of 32 Ford style, but between the two rails here. I'm trying to get, I'd like to get 11 gallons. I want at least 10, but I'd like to get 11 or 12. I don't know if it's going to be possible because it's going to be a very tight space, but I've been looking at all kinds of different ideas. I think I'm just going to have to make my own fuel tank to make it work. So we'll see what we can do there. And then inside here where the old seat riser was, that's got to get cut out. This piece is completely shot. It's going away. I might try to save these brackets. I'm not going to use these, I don't think, for mounting my seat, but maybe we'll wait and see. But I'm going to try to get those off there and save them just in case. So yeah, next thing to do is throw y'all in time-lapse mode, and I'm going to go at this bottom 6 inches of this car, so 6 inches, and see if I can't get it all stripped with a wire wheel and see what I got left to work with. Well, that's so much fun because the little wires come flying off at Mach 7, piercing you, piercing all your protective equipment. I don't know if you can see it, but like there's one there, one there, one there, one deep right there. Ugh. And you can see where I've been poked a billion times already. True story, I was stripping the frame with a wire wheel like this on a 1946 CJ2A Willis Jeep because I've always loved Jeeps too. So anyway, I was stripping the frame, had to go to my doctor for an appointment. I don't remember if it was a physical or what it was or whatever, but I had all these tiny little holes up and down my arms. And he's looking me over and he's like, you know, they'd asked all the questions, do you drink, do you use drugs, blah blah blah, and I don't use any drugs. I do drink, but you know, I said no, and he gets to my arms, he starts looking at them, and he's like turning them over back and forth, and he looks up at me, and he's like looking all quizzical, and I realized he thought I was shooting up. I'm like, no, and I had to explain what I did, and he was kind of, he laughed about it, but I think he was still kind of like, Anyway, So now that I look like a heroin addict again, I've stripped most of the outside. I'm gonna try to knock off some more heavy stuff with a wire brush in here and then hit it with some Rust-Oleum reformer just to kind of cover up the bare spots I created. It's not the final strip and paint, anything of that nature, but I just hate dealing with the cruddy, dirty, rusty metal. So as I go, I always put on paint and I'll strip it again. Cost me more work, but it's just the way I am. Once I get something stripped, I like to keep it clean, and that way I don't have to deal with it again. Okay, before we start painting or anything, we're going to get rid of a bunch more metal that we know we're not going to be using, so we don't clean it and paint it. We're going to start back here. We got rust down to here. We're going to be chopping a lot of this out for our gas tank anyway, so I think I'm just going to come to this point and go straight across. So that's what, 5 1/16. Marking 5 1/16. Connect our dots. Line. You know what? I can barely see that in the light, so I'm going to go grab the tape and draw me a line with the tape to cut on. Alright, with the outside prep now, come into the inside. Got a few things I need to do. One, where this body panel comes over and laps over the subframe, I need to cut this back. There's a nut right here that I probably won't cut back to, so I'll cut back like 3/4 of an inch of this, and like right here, and just cut this little rectangle out. That way that'll let me be able to weld this seam. Same thing on the other side. Back here, I need to clean up some of this crap where there was things riveted to the subframe. We don't need those anymore, so we'll clean that off there. We'll clean all this up where we can get ready to weld to it. You can see on this side, this is open. There used to be a brace here that the seat went on, and that brace is still here on this side, but as you can see, it's in really bad shape. So we're just going to cut that whole thing out just like this side, and again dress up, clean off the crap off the subframe so we can wire wheel it and paint it, and then it should be ready to go back on the car and get the braces added and yada yada yada, tie it in together. Okay, it's amazing how much a little bit of flat black paint makes things look so much better. Ow. Wire stuck in my forehead. After this dries, it'll be ready to be reunited with the main car, and we can start working those door gaps. However, first we got to make those corner plates for back there for the rear mounts. Okay, so I went with the 3/16 inch steel because we got our torch with our little depth gauge, depth guide, whatever on it, and I'm just gonna wing it. I literally have no idea what I'm doing here, but we're gonna give it a shot. 3, 2, 1, contact. Alright, we got our brackets in here. We roughed them out, and if you saw me using my plasma cutter, be kind, because this is the very first time I've ever used a plasma cutter, so I was learning as I went. Anyway, got them in. They fit nicely, except for they kind of rock, and I knew that was going to happen because we have this tab here for this brace that sticks out with rivet, 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 and that's not allowing it to sit down. So we need to allow for that, because we do want it to sit flat, especially down at this end, which is going to be the mounting point. So I think what I'm going to do, take where this is and notch out this corner for that, and then we'll weld this brace to this plate. But we would still have these two rivets over here, so we got to take care of those too. So let's get our template back and see what we can do about marking this out, what we need to do. All right, so we lay our template in place here, and we're going to extend this bracket line out and this one down. And unfortunately, that comes really close to our circle, closer than I wanted it to, but it'll be all right. All right, let's go cut this out, lay it back in. Let's see how the other side looks. That side's fitting pretty good. Okay, so we're gonna mark our plates and cut those. Okay, so we got them notched out for that brace. And fortunately, I left more, I didn't cut my hole as big as on my cardboard, so I have more steel there than I thought, so I'm happy with that. Anyway, now we got to deal with these two bumps here because we're still not sitting flat. And to do that, we're going to take our template, we're going to put our template back into place. And that gives us the marks where the heads of our rivets are. So we'll punch these out on our cardboard, mark our steel, and make accommodations for the rivets. Now, okay, so what we did was we drilled through all the way through the steel with a smaller hole on our marks. And then on the back side, we took a bigger bit and didn't go all the way through, but we wallowed out that hole so it'll sit now on top of the rivet heads, flush, and we can weld through to the top of the rivet heads. We'll weld here and here, and then down at this corner we'll throw a weld in there, and that'll hold it enough to get our body mocked up. So I guess the next thing to do is drag out the welder and weld these in. Well, fortunately for me, on the last Amazon Prime Day sales or whatever they had, I ordered a big old heavy duty 220 volt extension cord. So now I can drag my Cinder SD 4050 10-in-1 plasma cutter welder machine out to the driveway and work. So let's see if we can get these in place. Okay, our braces are in. They're nice and solid for now. I will put more weld around the edges and some other places once I get it, make sure everything's where I need it. When I take this apart, before I do all the final body work and everything, like when I cut these quarters out, I'll weld into here, so I have some access. But we'll get that in there permanently solid later. But it's plenty solid now for what we need to do, which is mount the body. And you would think after all that I'm ready to get the body on the frame. However, I can't yet, because like on the tub section where the subframe is in here, there's a little bit of body pieces in the way. Now this one's pretty much roasted. That whole thing can come out. It's just got a little piece holding it together. So we'll just try to get that one out of here like that. And we'll take this piece out as well. So that's one. On that side, this one's a lot more sturdy yet, but I'm probably going to try to take that whole thing out as well. Might as well, so we can get more access to cleaning this up. So I'm going to now cut this out, take these two pieces off on both sides, clean these up, maybe cut back a little more on our whatever this thing's called from the front body tub to give us a little more clearance. Let's do that now. I think it's time to see how my brackets fit and drag that back half back over here and put it back together with the car. Okay, let's see if we put it back in position. A little to the left. There we go. Something's wrong. Huh. Well, we're good. Half inch or so off of our mark. This needs to shift to the right. What's holding this up? It's on that plate. It wasn't on that plate before. It's lined up pretty good there. Probably gonna need a little more clearance cutting in there, but it's lined up pretty good. We're just on this side, we're like 3/4 inch back. Put our cradle here. This is fun stuff. So the front edge of our plate goes up against this rivet. And if it comes back to here, that is a 1/2 inch. I can't see over there. And on this side, it's a 1/2 inch as well. So if we move this back, that 3/8 gap we had at the front will now become a 7/8 gap. Which means we need to trim 7/8 off our plate back here in order for it to drop in. And dang, how'd I mess that up so bad? So what we got to do is put in a 7/8 inch notch, and that's going to be really hard now with the, or is it going to be hard? I do have a plasma cutter now, and I know kind of how to use it. Okay, so crude but done. I hacked those out again. When we take this apart, I'll pretty that up, make it look better. But we're still covering our bolt holes here, so that'll work. Same thing on this side, about the same kind of gap. I cut it a little too big, but what are you gonna do? For now, let's get back on the body. You can see up here on the passenger side where the subframe meets the front part, we got a really good fit up. The lines are really, really close, and it fits well. The door opens and closes. If we come up front and sight down our body, we can see that nice smooth curve all the way. Looks good. However, over here on our driver's side, it's our trouble side, we can see we are not fitting up as well. We got a pretty good gap there. I can force it over, but I don't know if I want to do that yet. We still got, if we sight down our lines, we're still kind of out of whack there, so we got to figure that out. But since our passenger side is so good, I think what we're going to do is just go ahead and tack this side together and lock it in, and then we'll work on the driver's side and try to make it better somehow. All right, so we've welded in this one a little better, more than just a couple tacks that was holding it. Obviously it's not done. This door closes nicely and fits nicely, but the latch isn't quite right. It's got some work to do there. Not a big deal, I don't think. The back door, however, is fitting nicely, closing nicely. We've got it welded quite a bit. It's again not done yet, but if we have to undo it, we can. If we close our doors, if we come up front and sight down the line, We still have our nice swooping curve on the passenger side. So this side looks good. So hopefully we're done here. Over here, we still got an unholy mess. We are not lined up here yet on the back half. However, the door fits pretty good. It actually fits really good and closes really, opens and closes easy. So that's not bad at all there. So, okay, so we can assume that this part's not too bad, although we don't know what's going on in the subframe there. Maybe I could twist it into shape, force it into shape, I don't know. So with this the way it is and all the problem being right in this area, I think what we have to do next, my Gatorade. It's okay, didn't lose it. Cap was on securely. I really hate to do it because this looks like it's lined up well, but I think I need to cut these tacks and see if something relaxes in this mess to let my doors go right. Here we go. Definitely latched easier, just with that. Oh, I kind of see something here. When I pushed it in the bottom of this rail rocked back. I think I need to cut it. I gotta get in there at the cutoff wheel somehow. Oh! Well, something just let go. Yeah, that last tack, it just broke on it. All right. So we're separate now. This piece is still sticking out. This door is shutting better, but man, this gap is so screwed up. We're too far apart here for this one to latch. There it goes. It fits fine. Our line is better, but not great. It's still too close here. I can tell how that doesn't want to go. Oh, why won't anything move? Do I have a bolt in here? I do. Hang on, gotta remove this bolt. Now that that's out of there, we have a single bolt in the cowl section. Nothing is bolted back here. I mean, look how big our gap is. Looking at this, this pillar looks like it needs to be bent in almost a ½ inch. This doesn't look right. Pivot. Oh, that felt good. Looks better, feels better. Hey, we're starting to get somewhere. I think that's where our problem was. This pillar was bent out, kind of like pulled way back this way. Because that seemed to have helped our body line a lot. It ain't perfect, but it's a lot better. Still feels like it needs to go back a little bit. Man, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting crooked here. Gonna take out the middle bolt on this side as well. So hopefully I'll be able to shift to body around a little bit more. Alright, let's see if what happens if we line these two up and clamp them. Maybe I should pull this forward, clamp it together, and then move the whole thing back. See. Okay. I almost want to tack the back together and just put it all into this. We're getting closer. I don't know, but this gap here, I don't know how to get rid of this. I'm like a good inch out at the bottom of the door. It's like this rail is twisted in. All right, after looking at the other side, on both sides, this piece here is, this top piece is pretty flat. However, on the other side, this bottom rail kind of flares out, leading me to think that this thing got hit on this side and jammed up. So maybe if we flare this back out, it'll help. One flaring back out tool.
This Subframe's pretty crispy today.
Still not helping. Ugh, so freaking frustrating. Okay, I've got 3 out of 4 body joints welded / tacked together, both sides of the passengers, and I got the rear tacked together. The rear here fits well, seems to be working fine. Got a little slop here in our hinge you got to take care of, so there's some stuff there, but overall. Now we come back up front, look down our driver's door side. This is getting better. It's smoothing out. We got a little bit of a kink in here, like almost like this corner needs to come out and that one needs to come in. I don't know what the heck's going on down here, why this won't work. This gap is still too tight. If we look in here, we got a good 1/4 inch gap. Let's take loose our clamp. And it might be a little bit there. Okay, so let's see. So that far side rocks up a little bit now, not near as much as it used to, so that's good. That rocks in. It's got a little bit of a shim in that now. Top of our subframe's pretty good there. Of course, this is not. What's our line look like if I do that? Hey, we're getting closer. Okay, so I got my cat's paw up here underneath the front leg, and that's my first real sign of hope, because that body line on the driver's side just got a whole lot better. It's a little flat where the front seat is, but otherwise it's a lot better. That's like my first sign of hope. That's the way to do body work. All right, we're getting closer, I think. So it's getting better, just a little bit at a time. Alright, so I've been hammering, beating, and banging on this thing. Look how easy it closes right now. I mean, it takes a little extra effort, but not a lot. It doesn't open back up. Our gap down here is still huge, which is, I can't figure out. Well, I've got this gap good. Alright, day 3 of this. And in case you're wondering, I have put on a new clean stained white t-shirt and jeans every day. So I'm not wearing the same gross set 3 days in a row. Just so you know. Although I've probably been known to do that before. But this time not. Anyway, let me catch you up on what happened. As the battery died again last night, and I continued to work a little bit. I had a little bit of light. I didn't want to run any new battery, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so let me catch you up on what I've done. We have this door working mostly. As it hits, it's hitting a little low and has to ride up and close. Got a little work there. This door is not closing and latching because the striker here is hitting the solid part here, and this needs to be shimmed out a little bit. So we're gonna have to take care of that. Over here on the passenger side, this is actually the best working door. It's fitting pretty good. I'm happy with it. That'll work. The front door is fitting well, but it doesn't latch, and it does still push back a little bit. It kind of pushes forward when I think all that can be shimmed away, but this latch isn't catching on the whatever you call this piece that goes in and out and hooks it. So this actually needs to come out a little bit in order to catch on this. So that's doable. We can do that. Now, all 4 joints here, there, and here are now solidly attached. The last thing I did last night was I spaced this back almost a ½ inch, and I welded in a piece underneath. I bent up these chunks of 16 gauge steel. The idea was it was to go up under and fit inside the sub rail. However, I made this top part too wide, so I cut one in half and just used half of it for now. You can put the other half in there and weld it, so that'll be fine later. But the door itself, our gap here is really good. Our bottom is still way out. We don't know what's going on here. Coming up front and looking down the body line, it's pretty good, except for this point here needs to come out. So I'm going to try to see if I can bend this out some. Maybe that'll help everything. So what I'm going to try to do is brace my spring spreader against the opposite side of the frame, of the sub rail frame, and this corner of the seat back, and see if I can actually spread it out. Okay, so we got that spring spreader in there, and I think we're starting to find the problem. If we sight down the body line, we've got our nice round shape now with that pushed out like that. The door all the way closed. However, our gap here is too wide. And that's fine because really this gap here is too big. If we close this gap up, I want to go 1/4 inch. Where are we going to go? At least 1/8, maybe a little more. That would help everything. However, we still have this problem here. Nothing's getting better down here. But that's, oh, so now this gap, when I push that in, this gap gets even bigger. So yeah, we want to close that up at least 1/4. A little over 1/4, probably more like 3/16. So that's got to close up a little more. And that would also help our striker issue. But how do we, so here's the dilemma. How do I push this corner out? And when I push this in, I don't know if you can see it, but watch. This post leans out as well. So the question becomes, how do I push this out and this out and get them to hold that position? Gonna have to think on that one a minute. All right. I feel like such a dope. I found it. I've got it actually all lined up right now. Look, this door closes perfectly down here. The gap is huge up here. It's like 3/4 of an inch, which means I need to take all of this back out and let this go back up together. This gap needs to go away. What I did was I took my spreader bar out of back here, jammed in this piece of 2x2 to hold that position out. Then I put my spreader bar from the passenger sub rail up to that corner of the cowl and spread that out. This piece shoves it out far enough to adjust this gap, and that spread up here brought in the bottom. So I found the problem. I mean, if I'd left these welded together and done this first, I wasted all this time. I could have just welded this all together and figured it out later. But you know, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? The good news is though, I can cut this weld here, slide all this together, weld it back up, and we're good there. The bad news is I got to figure out a way to make it hold this shape with the pressure that's on here and here. And I really don't know how to do that without putting in crossbars at an angle. That's my trouble. So one issue at a time. Let's go ahead, remove this and get this put together, and then we'll try to figure out the next step. Okay, so you can see how badly this is misaligned now with our braces in there. So I had to bring this back together with the braces in there. I'm hoping maybe that'll help hold it. I don't know. I feel like something has to give yet. Like, almost like I need to push this out and bend this, but I don't think so. Because this is still untouched. This center brace is not bent, so that doesn't tell me that this is bent. So that makes me think it's all in the upper supports braces, not in the subframe itself. So I gotta clean this up, get it together, tack it back together. Okay, the subframe was resisting because of the pressure being put on it by the cross members here to push these sides out. Now, using a ratchet strap, I pulled the two parts together, then C-clamps. After trying to do it with vice grips and stuff, I couldn't do it. Ended up trying to use two C-clamps to bring the top of the subframe in alignment, and then had to use a big hammer and drive it down to where these two are flush. The bad part about all this is I can't close my door and check with all this crap in the way. So I'm just gonna have to weld across the top here. So I'm gonna have to just weld across the top here. You gonna work this time. So I'm gonna weld this together up here. Hopefully maybe get a tack in down here. I don't know if I can get one on the inside or not. And then we'll take this all off and see if the door still looks like it's going to work. Okay, a few things that you may or may not have noticed during the welding process in that time lapse. One, I burnt through my strap. It broke, fine. That happens to me all the time. Two, besides my crappy welding, when I went to take the C-clamps off, the pressure against them had greatly relaxed. So I'm hoping that heat change in the frame took some of the twist out of it all or something. I don't know. There was a third one, but I don't remember what it was now. So let's see how the door's shutting now, what our gaps look like. All right. Oh, we're still way out here. We're good up here now. This is perfect. This is really good up on top. Maybe even. Let me tighten this down real quick. It latched. Look at that. Alright, so that's actually working now. So our pressure came off up here, so we need to tighten that back down, or expand that pipe again, see what we got. Okay, you watch this gap right here while I go tighten it. Okay, now start watching it. There yet? Almost. All right. Maybe a little bit more. Does that do any better? Or is that about as good as it's going to get? All four doors are now latched. I moved this one out just a little bit. It latches now, although I really have to slam this door. So this door in the twisting has gotten tighter. But it is there and it's latched. This one's latched. If you look down the body line, we still have our nice good curve here. And if you look down this body line, we finally have a nice matching curve. Door tucked in at the bottom, all of it looks totally acceptable to me. The problem now is, how do I get this to stay like this? All right. You know things are getting desperate when you break out the flame wrench. So here's the plan. I'm going to use the torch, and I'm going to heat, especially this joint right here where these two are welded together, but I'm going to heat this A pillar, this B pillar, maybe even this C pillar. I can't tell if there's a lot on pressure on it or not, but definitely in here. And hopefully the pressure that's on these when the metal gets hot will allow it to kind of reshape itself. And yeah, hopefully that'll, when it cools, it'll hold that shape. That's the hope and plan. Well, as this cools, I can't say I'm hopeful that worked, because I was kind of hoping these would get like less tight, but they don't seem to be any less tight. In fact, I'm throwing a little more tension in them to hopefully make it set a little better. So we'll let that cool and see what happens. All right, moment of truth. I'm going to start taking the spreaded bar out. Hopefully this gap won't get huge. How bad? Oh, I don't think it did anything. Shoot. Dang it, dang it, dang it. Oh, the battery died again, but I put more tension into the frame here, and then I heated up the A pillars on both sides, and hopefully letting this side relax and stretch and let that side go over and bend, and hopefully that will work this time, or at least work better. So we'll see. Meantime, let's shift to the back. And I want to install this subframe cross member here. This originally was back a little bit further, actually like right here. And when I Z'd the frame, it had to come out to let the body sit down. So I'm just going to install it right in front of the Z and weld that in. Well, for good, bad, or indifferent, I'm about to end this odyssey for the weekend. I'm going to take these braces out of here and see what our door gaps look like without them. Here we go. Get out. Oh, that's not a good sign. It's not coming easy. The fact that it still has tension against it is not encouraging. I'm guessing that door gap on the bottom over there is opening up with every turn. Alright, front brace is out. If that gap looks horrible over there, don't tell me yet. I want to be surprised. There we go. Alright. Here we go. Our upper curve isn't bad. How bad is this? Still horrible. Alright. Maybe that's what it needs. Maybe this needs to go in. Everything else is looking pretty good. Alright, that's not too bad. Let's see how we're Opening and closing. Good. Good. Really good. Good. Hey. We're a lot closer than we started. I think that top needs to go out a little bit. I'm not sure. I'm going to think about it. I still want to get that bottom gap closed up some more. It's closed up a little, maybe a 1/4 inch more than it was before. It's a lot of work, but my lines on the sides are good. This one could go in just a little bit, but overall our left line looks really good. Our right side line looks a million times better than it did. So I am happy with the results. So overall, the 3-day thrash was worth it. Learned a few things. Could have saved myself time if I'd figured out this part earlier, but now at least I know I've got my subframe right. It's all welded together. This is all one piece now, and it's pretty darn solid. So that's good. We've cleaned up a lot of crap that looked bad from the beginning. Cut off a lot of rusty metal, splashed some black paint on some stuff. That makes it look a lot nicer. Looks like it's actually a project and not a rust bucket. More importantly, all 4 doors are opening and shutting now. Latching. All 4 are latching. So this was good. I've got it welded in place. The subframe, we can go forward with mounting the body to the frame now, which I've already got 6 bolts in the front part. I got to do the back part. No big deal. We welded in that other subframe brace. That's where 2 body mounts are going to go, are in that one. So we've got everything put together to do that. So we'll do that later. I won't show that. That's just drilling some holes and dropping in some bolts. Other than that, I'm stoked that everything is working again. All 4 doors. The only thing I got is this gap here. And quite honestly, if I gotta run it like that for a while till I figure it out, fine, I'll live with it, but I don't like it. I will get this eventually. Maybe I can figure it out with the shimming. Maybe I need to do some shimming to bring it all back together. I got someone driving by my house really slow staring at me. Anyway, so hopefully, you know, I can get this better and better with the shims. This gap here is too tight. That one's really good. The back ones are really good. Everything, all my doors are really, really close. This one's just a little off now. But most importantly, these upper body lines are looking good again. I can live, this one's still a little bit out, but I can live with it. I want to try to get this B post in some. If we can do that, I think we'll have something. I think we'll have a winner. Yeah, I was dreading this, I really was. I'm glad I've got it done. I'm happy. I can finish weld my subframe now. I know it's in place. I don't need to change that anymore. I can get it bolted to the frame. And now I can start doing some of the other stuff that I actually really want to do. Getting the dash in is one I really want to do. And getting my steering column mounted on top here. Getting that bracing in so that's all solid. That'll be nice. I want to do that. I actually want to start building my headers so I know where they're going to be. During this process, I think I've got it figured out what I'm going to do with my gas tank in the back. So a lot of good came out of this thrash this weekend, but I'm tired. I got to go in and get some rest for work tomorrow because I got the real job to go to. Oh look, piece of wire on my arm. Yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my struggles. Learned something maybe, who knows. And yeah, I hope you keep watching. I hope you subscribe. And I guess until next time, I'll figure out what I'm going to do on this. I do have some tool projects I got to do. I got a lot of editing to do. I think I got 3 or 4 videos filmed, just not edited now. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I really don't. But until then, later YouTube.